Picture this, a massive car factory frozen in time for 14 years, dust-covered machinery, empty assembly lines stretching into darkness. An entire city that once thrived because of this place, now struggling to survive. Everyone thought it was over, a relic of Europe's industrial past, destined to crumble into nothing. Then, on December 5th, 2024, something nobody saw coming happened. The lights flickered back on, not because of European investment, not because of American capital, but because a team from China showed up with $270 million and a plan to bring the dead back to life. This is the story of how China is rewriting the rules of the global car industry, one abandoned factory at a time. Act 1. The War on Chinese Cars. Let's rewind for a second. If you've been paying attention to global trade news, you know that Europe and the United States have been waging an economic war against Chinese electric vehicles. It started quietly, then escalated fast. The European Union launched what they called an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese EVs. Translation? They believed Chinese automakers were getting unfair government support, making their cars too cheap to compete with. So they responded with tariffs. Heavy ones. BYD, one of the world's largest EV makers, got slapped with a 17% extra duty. Geely faced 18.8%. SAC, the parent company of MG, was hit hardest, 35.3%. But that was nothing compared to what the United States did. America didn't just raise tariffs, they doubled down, then doubled again. The tariff on Chinese-made vehicles skyrocketed from 25% to 100%. That's not protectionism, that's a wall. A complete blockade designed to keep Chinese cars out of American driveways entirely. The message was clear. We don't want your cars here. So what do you do when the two richest markets in the world slam the door in your face? You find another way in. Act 2. The Overseas Playbook. Chinese automakers didn't panic. They adapted. If tariffs make exporting cars impossible, then you stop exporting cars. Instead, you build the factories inside the markets you want to reach. It's a strategy that's unfolding across the globe right now. In Thailand, BYD committed $1.7 billion to construct a state-of-the-art EV plant with the capacity to produce 150,000 vehicles every year. It's not just about selling cars. It's about embedding themselves into Southeast Asia's manufacturing ecosystem. In Hungary, BYD is building its first European passenger car factory. Thousands of jobs, billions in investment, a foothold right in the heart of the EU. Meanwhile, Geely partnered with Malaysia's Proton to turn the country into a regional hub for right-hand drive vehicles, targeting markets from Australia to South Africa. And now, Spain. A $270 million lifeline to a factory that everyone had written off as dead. Act 3. The Ghost Factory. Let's talk about Santana Motors. Now, not the Volkswagen Santana. That's a completely different car. This Santana is a Spanish brand, founded way back in 1956 in a small industrial city called Linares, tucked away in the southern region of Jaén. For decades, this factory was the pride of the region. It built rugged, dependable off-road vehicles, machines designed for the military, for miners, for mountain roads where pavement didn't exist. Santana had a special relationship with Land Rover. For years, they held the rights to manufacture Land Rover models locally. The vehicles they produced, Land Rover series trucks and later the iconic Defender, became legendary across Spain and North Africa. People called them the most reliable off-road machines on the Iberian Peninsula. In the 1990s, when Land Rover moved on, Santana pivoted. They teamed up with Suzuki, producing compact, affordable off-roaders like the Jimny and Vitara. For a while, it worked. Sales stayed steady across southern Europe and northern Africa. But then the world changed. By the 2000s, the car market had shifted. Consumers wanted sleek sedans and crossovers, not military-grade workhorses. Off-road vehicles became niche. Santana's sales dropped. Debts piled up. Technology stagnated. Partners pulled out. The local government, once a supporter, stopped sending money. Orders dried up. The factory couldn't even cover basic operating costs. And then, in February 2011, the inevitable happened. Santana Motors shut down. Every production line went dark. Over 1,000 workers lost their jobs. The sprawling industrial complex, once a symbol of Spanish manufacturing power, became a ghost town. For 14 years it sat there, rusting, forgotten, until China arrived. Act 4. The Revival. Early in 2024, a Chinese team of more than 20 people flew to Spain. They weren't tourists, they were scouts. By May, the announcement came. A Chinese consortium was committing $270 million to resurrect the Santana factory in Linares. The plan was methodical. Phase 1. Inject roughly €5 million to assess the damage, repair the buildings, test the old equipment, restore power systems, make sure the infrastructure could handle production again. Phase 2. Rebuild everything else, modernize the assembly lines, upgrade outdated machinery, rebuild the local supply chain, prepare the factory for a new generation of vehicles. And on December 5, 2024, it happened. The ceremony was small but symbolic. Local officials stood alongside Chinese investors. Former workers, some who hadn't set foot in the factory since 2011, watched as the lights came back on. Machines hummed to life. A Spanish government representative didn't mince words. Without this investment from China, this factory would have waited another 3 to 5 years, or been abandoned forever. The goal? Restore 3 core production lines, welding, painting, and final assembly. Start with a capacity of 50,000 vehicles per year, then scale up to 100,000 depending on demand. But here's the twist. This isn't about reviving old gas-guzzling SUVs. The new Santana will focus on electric vehicles, pure EV platforms, new energy models designed for Europe's carbon-conscious market. The Santana 400, an electrified off-roader, is just the beginning. This isn't nostalgia, it's reinvention. ACT 5. Why China? Why now? So let's address the obvious question. Why did no European company step in to save this factory? The answer is brutally simple. They couldn't afford to. Europe's traditional automakers are drowning. Transitioning from combustion engines to electric vehicles requires astronomical investment. Billions in research and development, new factories, battery supply chains, charging infrastructure. Companies like Volkswagen, Stellantis, and Renault are already stretched thin. They're closing plants, cutting jobs, and struggling to compete with cheaper, faster-moving competitors from Asia. Nobody had the money or the willingness to gamble on a factory that had been dead for over a decade. Meanwhile, Japan's automakers had long since pulled out of southern Spain. Suzuki and Nissan exited years ago. There was no capital, no interest, no hope. But China? China is playing a completely different game. Act 6. The Chinese advantage. Let's put this in perspective. 15 years ago, Chinese electric vehicles were a punchline. Critics called them electronic junk. They were cheap, yes, but also slow, unsafe, and forgettable. Fast forward to today. In 2024, China exported over 6 million vehicles worldwide. More than 1.28 million of those were EVs. That's not just impressive, it's world-leading. For 2 consecutive years running, Chinese cars now reach over 160 countries, from Germany to Australia, from Brazil to Saudi Arabia. The entire world is buying Chinese vehicles. How did this happen? Between 2015 and 2020, China poured unprecedented resources into battery technology, electric drivetrains, and smart vehicle platforms. Companies like CATL became the world's largest battery manufacturer. BYD developed the Blade battery, which redefined safety and efficiency standards across the industry. By 2021, Chinese EVs weren't just catching up, they were leaping ahead. Today, China has the most advanced EV supply chain on the planet. It has the scale, the expertise, the speed. For most countries, reviving a 14-year-old factory would be a monumental challenge. For China, it's Tuesday. Act 7. The real strategy. But here's what makes this move brilliant. It's not charity. By building cars in Spain, Chinese automakers sidestep the tariffs entirely. A car made in Linares isn't a Chinese import. It's a European product. It carries a Made in EU label. That means it avoids the punitive duties, passes origin inspections, and integrates seamlessly into the European supply chain. It also changes perception. Right now, Chinese brands still carry a stigma in Europe. Foreign, cheap, questionable quality. But when vehicles are designed, tested, and assembled locally, when they create jobs and generate tax revenue, the narrative shifts. European consumers trust European-made products. European governments support industries that employ their citizens. This factory isn't just about making cars, it's about earning legitimacy. So here's what's really happening. While Europe and America try to keep Chinese cars out with tariffs and red tape, China is doing something smarter, building from within. They're not asking for permission. They're creating facts on the ground. Factories, jobs, supply chains, infrastructure. The Santana factory in Linares is just one example, but it's a signal that the global auto industry isn't just shifting, it's being rewritten. And the new rules? They're being written in Chinese. The question isn't whether Chinese automakers will succeed in Europe. The question is, how long until the rest of the world realizes they already have? If this story made you rethink what you thought you knew about the global car industry, hit that subscribe button. We're tracking the biggest economic shifts happening right now, and trust me, this is just the beginning.